this is the Civic Association's last meeting till September, when we're having the head of the oncology department from Frederick Memorial Hospital come to talk about why Frederick is the cancer curing center of the world and tell you other interesting facts. Our speaker this evening, I use the term, and I'm sure you do from time to time, civil servant, without really thinking about what the term means. This evening's speaker is a true civil servant. Most of his adult life has been spent taking care of you and I, whether you agree with everything he ever did or not. He's a very hardworking guy. Our speaker served on the board of aldermen here in Frederick from 1970 to 1974. In 1974, he was elected mayor and served as mayor from 1974 to 1990. During that time, with a lot of hard work, he produced what we now call the Carroll Creek Linear Park. From 1991 to 1995, he was deputy secretary of the Department of Planning for the state of Maryland. From 1995 to 1996, deputy secretary of natural resources. From 96 to 2002, deputy secretary of the Department of Planning. In 2011, he was elected to the Maryland Senate, and he served there from 2011 to 2023. In addition to all that, he served on so many boards that if I read through the list, we'd be here until the speech was over. It's with a great deal of pleasure that I bring you Ron Young.
I know I had him a little worried that I was going to get here. We have 100 people at our house tonight. And I helped set up and ran in and changed and then had to push through a crowd and be impolite to 8 people to get out the door to get over here. But it's the Plowman and Fisherman Club, and we have the chair of the budget committee from the Senate speaking tonight, who I served with, and Karen's on his committee now. So she was hesitant to go on that committee, but I kept saying, Karen, that's where all the money is. And she brought back about $8.5 million to Frederick this year. And, that's the kind of thing you can do on that committee. The money's there, you know where it is, and you know how to get it. My last term, I had 7 more days till the term was up, till the session was over. And a group of deaf women met with me over the weekend and said, can you get us money to build a Frederick Deaf Community Center? And I said, you have to ask back in September. You can't do it in April. And we talked a while, and I said, would you mind if it was the Maryland Deaf Community Center instead of the Frederick Deaf Community Center? They said, you mean we could have the Maryland one? I said, I can't promise you anything, but I can promise you I can't get money for a Frederick Deaf Center, but maybe I can for the Maryland Deaf Community Center. So with 5 days left, I got $2.5 million to start the Deaf Community Center. And Karen added $1 million to it this year, so they're constructing now, and it'll go.
Yeah. We're having some mic issues. The mic is making a bunch of distracting noise, and that's, you know.
Let's put the clip mic a little further out. This is on video.
Okay. Can you hear this now?
Okay.
Can you hear this now?
Yeah. That's good. It is on, right?
It's on. Can it be turned up? Or
Can you talk to that?
is there a way to turn it up? How about this?
Yeah, they suggested a way up here. Way up,
Go much farther. How about now?
That's better.
Is that better?
Yes. One more word,
Is that better?
yes.
you might have to shout, Ron.
Okay, I'll try to talk loud.
Thanks.
Anyhow, it's good to be here. I like speaking at home. I did 2 national speaking tours while I was with the state. I got to speak 150 times in 36 states and plus 400 times in Maryland. Actually, I figured it up one day. Since I got in politics, I couldn't talk to 2 people at once when I started. And I gave over 3,000 talks since that time. So I don't know if I'm any better, but I'm not nervous about it anymore. But it's great to be here instead of on the road. When my oldest 2 boys, who are now 61 and 60, were 5 and 6, I was doing some speaking. And my wife said, I don't get any rest when you're going and I have to teach. Could you talk to the boys and get them to stay in their own bed instead of jumping in with me? So I pulled the second one aside because he was sort of the leader. And I said, Brad, your mother needs her rest. If you stay in your own bed, your brother will stay in his. Can you do that so Mommy can get some rest? He said, yes, Daddy, I'll do that. So I went off on the trip. And when I returned to the airport was packed. My wife was there with the 2 boys. And he came running up and he said, Daddy, guess what? Nobody slept with Mommy while you were gone. So, so it's good to stay close to home. We just had some major charter changes. I thought I'd start there. I don't know how many of you might have followed that. They appointed a charter committee and they came back with a whole slew of recommendations, some of which they took, some of those which I don't think they should have taken. Some they didn't, but if you're familiar with them or not, in the past, we always had 5 aldermen and the mayor. And the mayor was also president of the board of aldermen. One of the first changes they made is they said, oh, alderman's archaic. I hated seeing them change that. It's been an alderman since 1814. And that's what people in Frederick were used to. And I think sometimes we make changes just because we want to make changes. It doesn't really amount to that much. I personally think that's one of those conditions. But anyhow, it's city council now. When I first took office, city was 20,000 people. It had no infrastructure. It wasn't growing. As a matter of fact, it was dying. And I grew up downtown. I loved downtown. I don't know if anybody here was here back in the 50s and 60s, but downtown was one of the most vibrant places you can imagine. I mean, we had 4 hotels downtown, 6 5 and 10 cent stores, 5 department stores, 4 bowling alleys, 3 moving theaters, every kind of shop you can think of. On weekends, everybody in the county came in. Farmers got in at 7:30 on Saturday morning and parked their cars and got an ice cream cone and sat in their car and talked to people all day. But it was a really great place that everybody knew everybody. I've often said I'd give anything if I could go back to 1955 for 1 hour and walk up and down the street and see all the people that I knew that aren't there anymore. But that's not possible. Anyhow, when the shopping centers came, downtown died. people moved out. Big old houses were converted into apartments. When I took office as mayor, the townhouses downtown were selling for $7,000 to $20,000. Now, there were some special big ones that weren't selling for that price, but 90% of them were selling for $7,000 to $20,000. And, you know, like I said, people were leaving. And that's the reason I ran. I said, we've got to change this. And I don't think anybody thought I could win. I was 33 and I was running against the guy who'd been on the board forever, the mayor once, and was very popular. And city was small enough. I knocked on every door in the city twice. And then I had a great thing. My mother knew everybody in town. And she stood by the polls. And everybody came by. You're going to vote for my son, aren't you? Oh, he's your son? Sure. So I said she got 500 votes, but she wasn't on the ballot. So I got credit for them. But I did win. And I got a really great board. They were all new. Everybody that got elected that term except me, that came from the board to mayor, were all new. And I still think it's the best board Frederick City's ever had. They were progressive. They wanted to change things. I worked with them well. They worked with me. We got along and we started making changes and they backed everything. We did it all together. And I got to the mayor's office and there was a sign on the door, out to lunch. The mayor's office closed to go to lunch. And I went in. There was only one employee left. I called him into my office and said, what do you do? He said, well, I get the mayor's coffee. I take the minutes and I sit in my office and wait for him to ask me to do something. And that was what the city administrative staff was. So I added a couple new people. I read all the studies that were on the shelf that had been done over the years, and nobody had ever read them. And I took what few good ideas I found in them and said, I'm going to try to make those things happen. I was in office about a month, and in the 20-year ago today column, it's in the paper. It said the mayor and alderman discussed building a parking garage downtown. I said, they've been talking about it for 20 years. I'm building it. And I did. And just one of many stories in the book. The former president of F&M Bank, which was right next to City Hall at the time, and he was chairman of the board, was one of a 15 or 20 blue bloods that lived downtown that wouldn't even speak to me. Like I had no business being mayor. So my secretary came in and said, before they became executive assistants, there's a Mr. Ben Schuff on the phone. He wants to talk to you. He wants to talk to me. He's never spoken to me. Picked the phone up. I said, how are you today, Mr. Schuff? He said, boy. Said, I don't like the things you're doing. I don't like that damn thing you're building behind City Hall, parking garage. Didn't know about it and don't like it. I'm getting an injunction and shutting it down. And I said, well, Mr. Schuff, I can understand you don't like it, but I can't understand you didn't know about it. We've had 3 public hearings. It's been in the paper. Said, boy, that's another thing I don't like about you. Letting all the riffraff come in and talk on things they got no business being involved in. And hung up on me. And to say the least, I wasn't real happy. I went straight over to the bank and asked to speak to the president. He was out. I said, he sees nobody till I see him. And I walked up and down the street to walk steam off, and I saw him go in and I followed him. And I said, you told me the bank was supporting the parking garage. Mr. Schuff tells me he's shutting it down. I need to know who I'm working with. Are you in charge or is he in charge? Well, Mr. Shuff's the boss. You mean our conversations haven't meant anything? Well, I wouldn't say that. I said, what would you say? Well, he's the boss. I said, how about the board of directors? Well, they make decisions. I said, I like to meet with them. He said, oh, we don't let the public talk to the board of directors. And I said, look, you might not like it. Mr. Shuff might not like it. I'm the mayor. I got elected and I'm going to turn this town around. And I said, I grew up in the streets. We were poor and I grew up in the streets downtown. And I said, I know how to street fight. So I'll tell you what, I'll teach you how. So I know what Mr. Shuff's going to do. Let me tell you what I'm going to do. I said, if by 3 o'clock you haven't contacted me to say you're supporting the garage and there's no trouble, I'm going to run curb and gutter down the alley behind City Hall and shut your damn drive-in windows down. He said, you can't do that. He said, you think not? Watch. So I expect to hear from you by 3 o'clock. And I went over, got a sandwich, and I watched the whole board of directors go in. And when I got back to my office, got a call, said, well, President of the bank would like to speak to you. So I picked the phone up and he said, could we meet? It was 5 to 3. I said, sure. You want me to come over there? You want to come over here? He said, could we meet in the alley between the buildings? I said, sure. So I went over. He came out. He said, we had a board of directors meeting. I said, I'm aware you did. I saw him going in. He said, the bank supports the parking garage. That's well, very good. I really appreciate that. And I did something I probably shouldn't have. I said, does that go for Mr. Shuff? He said, yes. And I said, would you thank him for apologizing in person? And went in and we built the parking garage. And then I got cussed out 7 days a week for 2 years about people getting mugged, people getting raped. Nobody would ever park there. None of that ever happened. And one day, the wife of one of the Blue Bloods called me and said, they turned me away from the parking garage because it was full. And I said, I'm so sorry. I said, I'll tell you what, if that ever happens to you again, call me immediately and I'll move my car and you can park in my space. You do that for me? I said, sure, let your husband know. So anyhow, it went on like that for a long time. And we buried the wires up Market Street. I got sued. But we planted 1,000 trees downtown. I had a guy come in my office, and now I'll get off of the subject, and said, I'm moving my company, and it's 500 employees, and I'm down to 3 sites, and Frederick's one of them. I'm thinking, man, I'm going to get this guy 500 jobs my first couple months in office. And we talked a while, and he said, well, you know, my wife will make the final decision. I said, your wife's going to decide where you locate your company? He said, yeah, any of the places are okay with me, but she wants a really nice house downtown. She wants a very vibrant arts community. She wants a bunch of good restaurants. She wants a good education system. She wants an executive house on a golf course. And I'm sitting there thinking, you're not coming here. And he didn't. But I wrote down everything his wife wanted, and I added 10 things to it. And I said, I'm going to get all these things here. And nobody's ever coming in my office and leaving again because they can't find the things that their wife and their employees want here. And I don't think I ever did lose another one. But, you know, when you start doing things like that, the next election, I barely won and I lost my whole board. Really good people. And funny thing is, I had 4 Democrats and 1 Republican on that board. And the next board was 4 Republicans and 1 Democrat. And everybody said, well, they'll shut you down. Ironically, 2 of the 4 Republicans were cousins of mine. But anyhow, that had nothing to do with it. They worked with me just as well as the first group did, except the first group had better ideas and was a little more innovative, but they were both great. And I had a lot of good boards. One of the sad things in life, I served in the city for 20 years, and every elected official I served with, except 2, are dead. And only one's still in Frederick. He's not in good shape. But I guess that's part of growing old. Anyhow, back to what happened here. They divided the town up into 5 districts. And there'll be a council member from each. And by the way, we need a good one from out here, if you know anybody. So convince them, send them to me or whatever. I'll try to help them. And 2 run at large. Another thing they changed, the mayor was always president of the council. The mayor is no longer president of the council. The council elects a president from the board, and the mayor doesn't even go to the city meetings. I think that was a mistake too, because I built a working relationship with them and we were all in it together. And now they've been separated. The same thing happened at the county, and I don't think it's as effective. On paper and theory, it might sound more effective. I just don't think it really is as effective, but we went to that. They approved non-citizen voting. I want to give a pathway to citizenship to as many good people as we can that are here. I don't agree with what's going on in Washington. We've got to reform the immigration system so people come in right. But we have people that have been here 15 years, got married here, have 2 kids here, own their own business. Somebody made an interesting movie about 10 years ago. It was what your country would be like if we got up tomorrow and there were no Hispanics here. All the restaurants would be closed. All the hotels would be closed. There'd be no produce or fruit in the grocery store. There wouldn't be any new construction. Went on and on. Now, he put a humorous one at the end. He said all the actors and actresses in Hollywood would have to raise their own kids. But this whole country was made on immigrants coming here, wanting to work hard, wanting to make a good life, and wanting to succeed. And those that want to do that, we should accommodate it, and we need them. We're going to see a lot of things change if they were all actually going tomorrow. I don't think that's going to happen, even though it's what's being said. But anyhow, I think they ought to be on a pathway to citizenship and should vote when they become citizens. I don't know a country in the world I could go to and vote not being a citizen. So, but anyhow, that's there right now. As I said, they changed the name, the 7-member districts. They put term limits in. The mayor can only serve 2 terms, and an alderman can only serve 3 terms. A lot of people like that. I was complimented. The Frederick News Post opposed this and said that I was, very popular and a really good mayor, and I got a lot of things done and served 4 terms. And if I hadn't been able to serve those last 2 terms, a lot of things like Carroll Creek or whatever wouldn't have happened. I developed the know-how, both with contacts in Washington and Annapolis and other people to make things happen. And I didn't have that when I first went in. So I've always felt we have term limits. If you don't like somebody, don't vote for them and they won't be back. I lost my last election. And Carroll Creek was one of the big reasons. People thought I was going to bankrupt the city, thought it would never get finished. It got finished. that didn't bankrupt the city. As a matter of fact, I got accused of being I don't want to get heavy into Democratic Republican politics, but I got accused of being a big spender and raising taxes. And so I was mayor 16 years. I cut the net tax rate 9 times in 16 years. I said every Republican in the city's history combined didn't cut it 9 times. I was able to do that because we grew economically, values went up. Now, so actually, people had to pay more taxes on their house because their house was worth a whole lot more. But when they decided to sell it and go to Florida or retire or whatever, instead of selling it for 20,000, they were selling it for 400 or 500 or 600,000 and doing well. So speaking of that, I got an email about 7 months ago, and it's my favorite email I ever got, and I get about 500 a day, unfortunately. Guy said, you have no idea how many times I called you a SOB. He didn't use the letters. When you were building Carroll Creek. And he said, I love it, thank you. And so, you know, that's what happens, I think, when you do things sometimes. And I had a reporter say, would you still do Carroll Creek if you knew you were going to lose the election? I said, I was pretty sure I was going to lose the election, and you're daggone right, I would have done it. It needed to be done, and so I got that done. They did allow that a mayor or council member, after they've served their time, if they sit out a term, they can come back. They also set the age to run for council at 18 and the mayor at 19, which I tried to tell them it was illegal because I bought a house on Butterfly Lane and city annexed all the way around me, but not me. So if I left my house and went north, south, east, or west, I was in the city, but I wasn't. And so I bought a townhouse up here, was here about 18 months. And I decided to run again. And they said I couldn't. And I said, I can. A 3-year term. The courts have all said that's not right. So they ended up taking me to court. The judge ruled that you could not have a thing where you had to live in a place more than a year to run. So he made a court ruling that a year you should be able to run. So the city just made the mayor 2, which violated his court order. So I don't know if somebody will challenge that or not, but they did that. They talked about ranked choice voting. Fortunately, they turned that down, in my opinion. It has its merits, but say you have somebody that's like I was at the beginning, and it's got a lot of things done, which also made me very controversial. So another person runs in the other party that's pretty good. And a third person gets in. Well, you rank 1, 2, 3, how you'd vote for the people. Because I was controversial, people that liked me would vote for me number 1. The ones that didn't like me would vote number 3 or not at all. And the other person that wasn't well known might have come in second everywhere. So he or she would win. And might have been the third best person. And I think you ought to vote for somebody, and the person that gets the most votes should win. It's just a personal opinion. They did go with that. There were some city councils not supposed to be involved in day-to-day affairs. They never were supposed to be involved in day-to-day affairs, but I guess they put it in writing. And they have to review the charter every 8 years. But that's okay. They set salaries. So I think overall, the changes they made were okay. I don't think they're gonna make a huge difference, but things will happen differently. I think one of the things a lot of people are concerned in is how developments happen. And pretty much, if somebody has a big development, like Bob Worman came to me and started telling me what he wanted to do here, and I thought, here's another guy who wants to cut corners to make more money. We talked a long while, and he told me about the studies he'd done, and I suggested some things to him. And I found out he really wanted to build a good community. He wasn't looking to go cheap. He narrowed the roads, and a lot of developers ask that because they didn't have to build as much road. Well, it's also traffic calming. I know we still have some people speed around here, but in general, it slows you down on the narrower street, which I think we want. It also pulls the houses closer together and makes it easier to know your neighbors or get to know them. He also looked at things. He didn't make this a retirement community like you see a lot of people 55 and over or 65 and over. He found, and he had studies done, that a lot of seniors missed having kids around and liked having a few, but they didn't want too many. So he actually designed this so there would be a child in about every 8 houses. And he said, that's great for a single mother too, because they've got adopted grandparents in the neighborhood that'll take care of the kids. It's not all the time, but on occasion, which gives the young woman a chance to get out and do something herself. But he really thought through all those things, and he planned a downtown that I really liked. Unfortunately, and I was opposed to what Du Bois did at first up in the center, but I think under the circumstances, it actually worked out. He was going to have stores all the way around and 4 or 5 restaurants. And they built all these shopping centers around here, and small stores weren't going to make it here. So they really needed to change it. But I think they've kept a nice feel with the restaurants and shops that are here, and the home and the senior housing. I think in retrospect, it's worked out okay. We left here for a while and came back. I actually love living here. I've gotten to know a whole lot of people, especially walking my dog. And another thing, looking at things both ways, you won't find a community that has more landscaping and trees than this one. And Bob Wormald liked that, but he also was a smart businessman. He said, for every dollar I spend on landscaping, I get $3 back in the price of the house. So it was a good business decision, but it also made a really, really nice community. I think the open areas, the trees, you just drive through here, it's a good feeling. So that went on. But today, I don't know that they meet with the mayor. I guess some of them still do. They go to the planning commission. I've been working with a group that's tried to make zoning more flexible and mixed use and more compatible with the neighborhoods. The big controversy at the Brickworks. They're putting a grocery store in there that I think's needed. I just think it's the wrong place. But another thing is, I don't think cities getting as much money out of the developer as they should. I served for 16 years as mayor, city never built one road in that time. We built a lot of roads, developers built them and paid for them. And when a developer came to me and told me what he wanted, I looked at it and I told him what I wanted. And they kind of stepped back and said, well, let me work on the numbers. And invariably they came back and said, we'll do that on one condition. Once we start the development, you won't stop us in the middle because that could bankrupt us. I said, you do all the things I want to make it a right community. You've got permission to build the whole development. And that worked out really well. So we're still looking at a lot of things here. We're still growing fast. As I said, when I first got elected, it was 20,000. We're about 85,000 now, and we're going to hit 100. And I do think it's better that in most cases that it's in the city, because you get into sprawl and eating up farmland and other things when we still eat up farmland on the edge of the city, but stays compact. And if you annex it, they're paying taxes. People like Clover Hill and development at Waterside over here don't pay taxes, but to the city. But they get benefit from being right here and close to things. And so I like to see the growth grow that way so we can accommodate things. I fought for years to get tax differential, and finally one term gave us tax equity, which trouble with that is the county doesn't give enough, but they give the city a grant each year for some of the tax differences, and the city spends it. You don't get it. With tax differential, you wouldn't pay for the services that the county doesn't give you, that the city gives you. But you would get a reduced county tax rate. So, just make up numbers. If the county tax rate was $2, yours might be $1.70. But now it's still the same, and money goes to the city, and maybe you get some benefit, but it doesn't look as good. And a lot of people move out of the city because they don't want to pay two taxes. I sometimes wonder myself, but I like living in the city. So, and I think a lot of people do, and so they stay. But that's something that's going. I think this next election is going to be interesting. Sadly, the way they divided it, District 3, there's about 5 good people in that district that wanted to run. And you get out here and it's almost nobody. There's a couple of districts right now that nobody has stepped forward. And we're losing a couple of good people that would serve, and we don't know what we're going to get there. Somebody will finally step in and say, hey, I'll do that for 31,000 a year, and I don't have to go to a meeting now and then. So I don't know what will happen there. I've been trying to, I was trying to put a ticket together with staying away from the mayor's race. I was just going to try to get council people that wanted to really represent their districts and do things for their district that needed to be done. With what's going to happen over the old State Farm property, we definitely are going to need a traffic light on Waterside Drive and Monocacy Boulevard. And I still think it's being worked on, but we still need to get rid of this bridge problem. The city should let that go. So we should have somebody out here that's on the board advocating for us. If everybody's from someplace else, they might be interested, but not as much. I tried to bring several of the aldermen out here. Got to talk to a couple of them. One who I helped get elected wouldn't bother to come out. So I won't be helping him again if he runs. I mean, I could take it if he disagreed with me, but he didn't even come out. But there are a lot of issues coming up, and I do think, and if we could get good people in all the council districts, it's good in the sense that you have somebody that knows that area, that works for that area, and then everybody should work for the city as a whole. I've just kind of rambled. But anything you want to ask or tell?
Know what is, if anything, is planned for if. I can't remember names of roads, you cross Monocacy Boulevard into the shopping centers across the street. What's a plan, all that vacant land before the apartments are built, you know what I mean?
Which way are you meaning?
I'm talking about,
Where the gas station was supposed to go, but.
Yeah, right,
yeah,
right.
Oh, where Mill Pond.
yeah, where Mill Pond comes out, there's all that nice space there that you would think they would at least plant some trees and, you know, but nothing.
Yeah, well, it's probably something that's gonna be developed. But there are tree planting requirements that we put in when I was there, that every developer has to put a certain percentage of trees in. And some of them, the site doesn't work out well, but they gotta go find a location someplace else and plant them then. I know, one thing that probably made the mayor interested in this property back here is they thought they could plant some trees there. So they're looking for places to plant trees, and whoever goes there will have to do some trees. I'm wondering, in Monocacy Boulevard and 15, those four corners, something's gonna happen on every one of them eventually. At my age, maybe it won't be here to see it, but something's gonna happen there. And I would think sooner than later, at least one of them would go into something. Now, the hospital or State Farm developer, they're putting like nursing home and senior housing, and so I don't think that should create a whole lot of traffic. It'll of course create some, but it won't cause the problems if they were like putting Waterside or Highlands over there. So that shouldn't be a big problem there. But yeah, we're gonna keep seeing development. We just need to try to make it right for where it is and for what the needs are there. Which isn't always easy, but you can make it happen if you want to, and the city can do that. Mhm.
Hi there, my name is Ellie, and I moved here, bought a house about a year and a half, and moved in about 14 months ago. And part of why we were able to move here is because my husband's a federal contractor for NASA. And obviously, that's much more tenuous, and I've thought a lot about how I've already met so many people who work for the federal government who, because of teleworking, were able to move to Frederick, and now facing job loss, and I'm really concerned about how that's gonna impact all the small businesses. I know we put in a tremendous amount of money into the restaurants in downtown Frederick, because that's why we moved here, the great food scene.
Yeah.
Community and sitting on Carroll Creek at the wine kitchen. I just wonder how Frederick is going to continue to grow without those federal dollars coming in for salaries.
Well, I think we're gonna continue to grow. I think it's gonna be slower. It's gonna change. And, and we get into national politics, but with what's going on, a lot of people are gonna have problems. We're not gonna touch Social Security, but yeah, we are. And Medicare and Medicaid, I like this lady that didn't get elected, but was running for prime minister in Canada. And she said, no, we don't want to be a 51st state. maybe you should join us. We have free health insurance for everybody. It's the benefits. I said, we're not looking to give that up. And that's something that, I mean, I believe in universal health care. I believe that everybody should have health care. I don't mind if it's a mixed system of some people private, some people government, but everybody should have insurance and be covered. Nobody should die because they can't afford to go to the hospital or things like that. And yeah, the small businesses are going to be hurt by this China tariffs. My God, there's probably nothing in Walmart except the food that doesn't come from China and a lot of other small stores. And if you go in and what you bought for $10 is now $25. And we don't know what the impact's going to be on everything yet. It's been a big impact on the Maryland budget, and it's probably going to be an impact on the county and city's budget. And we just, everything changes from day to day, and we don't know what it's going to be. And so we're living in a very tenuous. I never thought I'd live to see anything like this, but it's here, and I hope we survive it and can get back on to more even keel. There are things that need improving and changing. I don't think anybody argues with that. But you don't take the chainsaw and cut the tree down. You might just trim the bad branches. And so, but I'm not Washington, I don't know. But we really do have to be concerned in how it affects the small businesses and everybody's personal life. And it is going to have an effect.
What's going on with the hotel downtown?
It's finally going. It's going to happen.
We were passing the other day, we didn't see any construction.
They were doing some work back there today. They're also doing the interior of the building. And they've got the funding. It's actually going to happen this time. When I left office in 1989, I had 2 hotels approved downtown. And after I left office, they both died. And that was 35 years ago. And they've gone through these steps, and I got money for them to help with this hotel 6 years ago. And then they backed down on it and lost that money. So they've gotten some government help again. And I think we're going to actually see a hotel there in about 2 years. Anything around them?
What do you think the future of East Street is?
That's a real tough one. When you get down to 4th Street, from 4th to Patrick, there's just no way to widen that without taking stuff down that you don't want to take down. I planned Monocacy Boulevard back in the 1980s. And I thought that would take some traffic off, but it ended up creating its own traffic. We probably need another alternative down there to at least get trucks to go around and not up East Street. Because morning or evening, whichever way you're going, if I'm coming down East Street by 5th Street, I turn and go down the alleys. And it's a problem. I don't know the answer to it, but it's definitely a problem. Yeah, step out of the way. Yes, sir. Fred.
Set your $100,000 people. This is a county problem more than a city problem. Where are the kids going to go to school?
Well, I don't think the county's done a good job keeping schools here in the city. Across the highway, when they built, I had a land reserved for an elementary school over there and the Board of Education sold it. And we need a high school up this way. It could be back over towards the airport, or it could be on the other side of Monocacy Boulevard, but we definitely, or Crestwood back that way, we definitely need another high school in the city. All the kids from here go out to Walkersville. And that's nice, it's a nice school, but we ought to have a nice school here for them. And the county's got to recognize that. A lot of people say, oh, the city gets everything. No, they don't. Right? They built more new schools in Urbana than Frederick's had in the last 50 years. And so we probably need to get some more people elected to the school board from Frederick too, from the city. But you know, wherever they go, I always got a kick. The county said, oh, the city is causing us to spend something because the city is growing. No, we're not. Those people were coming here, and if they didn't come in the city, they'd be out there. And it's more expensive out there. It uses more farmland up, makes people commute farther, causes traffic problems out in other areas, causes traffic problem coming in here. It just needs to be planned better, and the city and county need to work on that together.
How long does it take start to finish if you're building a new high school?
At least 5 years and maybe longer. But they got to obtain the land, and I thought they should have bought State Farm property. That would have been
Yes.
perfect. And so it's all would have cost so much to renovate it. Well, it would have cost some. And they could have put additions on it, but they 80 some acres over there. It's been perfect for a high school. But that's gone. So, yeah, we need some good people to run for board education too.
All the stuff. That is one of the things, part of why we moved here is we thought the Board of Education was gonna be great. And the new people that are on, who are attacking children who are different. I mean, my son has all sorts of differences, and it's really disturbing, and I don't understand. You know, I always thought Frederick was sort of a open, welcoming place, and suddenly we have a school board that could very potentially flip.
And you know what?
And I don't know what to do about that.
Elect better people next time. And you know, very frankly, for the school board, I don't care about the Democratic Republican part. I just want good people. But unfortunately, the Republicans have been running these MAGA anti-school, anti-book people. In the past, the candidates that the school board represented or endorsed after the primary, anybody with the same viewpoints withdrew if they didn't get the endorsement of the teachers. This year, this woman decided she was going to run anyhow. And she split the votes enough that two good people lost, and we got two of the other type, the book burners. Actually, I have a new novel out, and I'm trying to figure out how to get it banned because they really sell them. They're banned. It's an interracial couple, so maybe that'll help. But yeah, we've got to just get the right people in.
Anybody else? Ron, thank
Oh,
you so much.
you got one more there.
Medical issue. We have one hospital. You still have one hospital for all the growth that's taking place. Is there any other hospital that has shown any interest in coming here?
Well, they've talked about building another hospital on this property. And I don't know if that's gonna happen, but they're talking about it. One of the things that they would do there. So, And the whole way hospitals operate now is so different too. I think they should have gone up a couple more floors on one down than we have now. But there's still some room there to grow, and we've got these emergency medical places all over, and Frederick Hospital's got the cancer center up here, and they've got facilities around. So they've been expanding, but not in like one hospital in one place. So,
Ron,
uh-huh.
what do you think is gonna happen with the election next year?
I don't think anything in Maryland is gonna change. I think, I think that some of the Republicans in swing districts are scared to death because, you know, they're afraid of Trump, but they're now afraid of what's gonna happen to them if they stay. It's sad. Sorry if anybody likes him. I think he's, I won't go into that. But, you know, when I was growing up, the first time I ran for mayor, after I won the election, I walked down the street and we passed the Republican headquarters. And I didn't say anything, but there were 5 or 7 members on the Republican Central Committee. 5 of them worked for me. I got down to the Democratic headquarters and 4 of the 7 worked against me. I'm a Democrat. But back then, the Senate seat I held 40 years before me was held by a Republican for 40 straight years. 3 different of them. I actually supported 2 of them. They were really good, common sense people that cared about the community and whatever. And with Trump, that's disappeared. They're all so afraid of him that whatever he says, they do. There aren't those moderates that say, well, okay, we want to do some of the things we want, but it makes sense to protect these people. We've got to take care of our veterans. We got to see that our kids in school, you know, but we don't have that anymore. It's whatever is said. And I hope that, I think I might outlive Trump. I don't know. He's like a lot younger than me. But I don't know that I'm going to outlive, but we turn this around. And, you know, I know people overseas and things in politics and some not. And, you know, you used to go over there and you were proud to be an American and they were proud to know you. And now I saw a group of Americans on a tour all carried Canadian flags because they didn't want people to, you know, we got to turn it around where people can work together. And I'm a big believer in compromise. But when it comes to Trump, do I compromise and take half a lie? I can't do that. So I don't know. We've got to work through it. We've got to talk to each other again. We got to get rid of a call. And you know, I still remember the time when everybody was American and didn't matter what party you were, the people you were friends, and now, you know, people break off friendships, don't talk. That's not the America I would live, or I don't think most people want. So I don't know the answers, but
You may not like to answer, but who would you like to see as leader of the Democratic Party for 2028?
you know, I think probably the best candidate is Governor of Michigan. But I don't think they'll take her. I'm afraid, I think they're gonna be afraid to take a woman this election after what just happened, and that's a shame. Wes Moore is gonna end up being in the race. I don't know where that'll go. I don't think the governor of California is too slick and people don't accept it. And I don't know. who might step forward, might be somebody we don't, none of us are even thinking about right now.
30-year-old.
Well, I have to close on a story about another one of my sons. I have stories about all my sons, but I'll just do opening and a closing one. I was in the mayor's office one day. And by the way, it makes you feel old. My oldest son will be 62 next month. And my second son's 60, and I said, I never thought I'd live to see my sons be senior citizens. But when he was a senior in high school, and I was mayor, and I got a phone call at the office from him. He said, Dad, Senator Durr, who's one of the Republican senators and a very good friend of mine. I worked for him and he worked for me. But he had to cancel. Could you come up and talk to our class about what a mayor does? And I looked at my schedule. I can come up, and I hopped in the car and I drove up. I explained what a mayor did and I took questions. Bell rang and the kids all applauded like the teacher told them to, and got up and left. And I saw this one kid in the back kind of looking at me, and I could tell he wanted to say something to me. So with my son, I walked up to him. He said, Mayor Young, that was the stupidest, most uninformed, most boring. He went on for about 6 minutes talk I ever heard in my life, and he turned and went out the door. And I'm standing there. My son jumped right to my defense. He said, Dad, don't pay any attention to him. That's Johnny. He's the biggest troublemaker in class. He never does his homework. Do you know he's never had an original thought in his life? All he ever does is repeat what he hears all the other kids saying. So if I see any of you standing by the door, I'm gonna go out another way.
Ron, thank you so much.
So,